Trading the foreign exchange market carries high risk and may not be suitable for all investors. Trading on margin, utilizing leverage can carry an even higher level of risk that can lead to a complete loss of investment funds. So before deciding to trade the foreign exchange market or using any of our software alert products, you should carefully and diligently consider your personal investment objectives, level of experience, and risk tolerance. There is a possibility that you could potentially sustain significant loss. You should not invest any capital or trade that you cannot afford to lose. It is your responsibility to be aware of and understand all risks associated with foreign exchange trading and to seek professional advice from an independent certified financial advisor if you have any doubts. Auvoria Prime does not exercise trading authority over your trades. You and you alone exercise discretionary trading authority over every trade.
The New Zealand USD, and right now it is in it's basically the pair is in an up. Can anybody see my screen okay? You see it?
Yes,
Okay.
sir.
Okay. It is in a uptrend, but we'd have a down arrow. This arrow happened about a half hour ago, and it's a down arrow right into the green zone. The fact it's an uptrend, we could possibly expect a bounce on this thing, and I guess if you're looking at it as a bank induction move, which I'm not real familiar with, although I am learning about it, is that if you get a down arrow into the zone in an uptrend, you can take that trade. I don't like this right now. I'd like to see this thing. It's. I'm not sure what to say about this one. I think it's from the standpoint of the bank induction. I think it's probably a good trade. Looks like there's plenty of room to the upside. It isn't an uptrend, and you may take a little bit of a heat still, but there's 34 pips to the upside, and you have another zone below. And if you were to get into this trade at this point in time, you would have 40 pips probably to the other side of this zone right here. Yeah, so basically you'd have the green zone, you have all the space, and you have another green zone to keep your away from your stop. So from what I can see, if someone has a better idea about this would be a valid trade for a bank induction move. What do you? Anybody have any comment on that?
I
Charles,
agree.
I know Charles, you're pretty familiar with this. What do you think, Charles?
No, I'm not. This is brand new to me. I was about to say I haven't, because the bank induction hasn't been introduced by Nate yet, right?
Correct. Well, I think he may have introduced it over his in his sessions at nighttime. I have not heard it. I'm not that familiar with it. Jackie was
Jackie
talking a
gave
little
me
bit.
the quick and dirty version of it.
Yeah.
But I don't know. I'll just say this: I wouldn't make this move because I just don't understand it yet.
I don't understand it well. I think it does make sense to me that we have a down move. The only thing I don't like about this, and this is what happened yesterday, we had a similar situation with gold, and the gold just took off, just bounced right down, stopped everybody out, then went right back on up again.
I was in on that one.
You're in on that one, so you have that one firsthand. So
yeah, that's why
I'm going to say that I think if
excuse me,
I'm going to sit this one out, but I think there's a possibility of a good trade. I would prefer.
I'm going to watch it. Yeah, I mean, it looks like it's setting up for a bag entry potentially. You know?
Exactly. I think I'm going to wait for the bag entry as far as rather than the thing I don't like this moving average is still kind of pointing down. And until that sort of flattens out and starts to curl around a little bit, I'd rather just wait until it crosses that moving average. As these bars tick away to the right side, this thing's going to keep on sloping down. And as it gets down, then you get the cross above, then I'd be more apt to be taking that. I do like the fact that there's a nice strong move coming down. And right now this low has not, you have a little bit of a wedge right here.
Is it? It looks like it's also maybe a W.
It could be starting to form into a W. Exactly right. But we have a little bit. There's a strong move down from last night, pulled back up. Now it's retesting. Obviously, there are some buyers that came into this area. So right now, there's a lot of buyers in here. If this price comes down and breaks this, then we could possibly have a divergence, which could be a head fake. But right now, I'm going to wait till there's still a lot of downward pressure. The dollar is still relatively strong across the board, and the New Zealand dollar is one of the weakest ones across the board. So until the New Zealand dollar gets a little bit more strength, I like to let's see how far this thing goes down a little bit further.
And if you look at the 5 minute, Al, there's some resistance right above the moving average. Yeah, see that?
Yep, you got this little zone right here on the 5 minute. Yep. And if you see that once it breaks out of this area right in here, and you can see this is where this was the overnight high. Here's where the daybreak is. Here's the overnight high. So it's made a new high overnight, made a new low. This was that strong move down. Now the question is, did it find a bottom down here? Or is it going to break through here and go down further? So this one, I'm just going to stay away from this for right now. We'll keep an eye on it. If I don't make a note of this one, and we'll keep an eye on this pair. You can always keep going back to that.
Right. May I make a comment on the bank induction?
Sure.
Okay. When I was on one of Nate's calls, please don't. I mean, this is what I remember. Okay, that you have 4 to 6 closes of candles in a zone, and you wait. I mean, on the 5-minute here, you don't really see it, but on the 15, all right. So you see going left above where your pip thing was. That went too far. You squished it too much.
Squished too much.
Squished too much.
Too squished.
Too squishy. More.
Too squished. Here we go.
All right. All right. Just even leave it there. It's fine. Just
one
leave it.
here.
That's great. Right above the pips to the right. You see all those red candles? Go left.
All these. These?
Left.
No, left.
Left. One more.
More
One more. Yeah, right there.
Right
Okay.
there.
So usually the bank inductions are in a zone. Okay. Now, for example, if all these candles were in this green zone,
all these
you
red
don't
were
need,
in here.
yes, down here. You do not need an up arrow above the moving average. You can take it on the next candle, the green candle, and go.
This one here.
Yeah, that long candle.
And that's if these were down in the green zone.
Yes, that's a bank induction. Yes, they would be in a zone. Yeah.
Okay, so actually, like right now, these are in the zone. Not all of them, but this still in the zone. And now if it comes back up and gives you an up arrow, then we can take it, and that would be your bag entry.
Well, you don't even need it. You don't even need the up arrow. See, down here, you don't have consecutive. Like, see how these are all, if all these consecutive ones were in the green zone below the moving average,
okay.
Right? Then you don't have to wait for that green candle, or yes, that candle, you can go in even though you don't have an arrow there.
Okay.
So they're like kind of packed together.
But you do need a green candle.
Yes, you need the yes.
And you need to vote, Christine?
It doesn't have to be above the blue line.
Right. As long as it closes above the blue line, you don't have to have the entire candle, but you have to have a consecutive row, like 4 to 6, Nate was saying, like 4 to 6 that stay together in a pack. Because even right there, if you look at the 1, 2, 3, 4th shaded area, right? You have all those closes together, right?
Like these here.
Next money zone. Okay. Like you see how you're at that down arrow, you have all those together, right? In the green zone. Right. Now you go and take the close of the next candle. Now I don't know when that arrow popped up, but you would take, the first one out of the
you can
that
see
closed
this would be
above.
a red.
Yeah.
This would be this red candle. Basically, there's 2 green candles or 3 green candles in here. So you probably would have taken it right about in this area.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. All right. Well, I think that's all good to hear that. I didn't. Thank you for sharing that, Christine, because this is kind of a new one to me, and I haven't seen the verbiage on it yet. So I hate to call them out, but I do think it's something that we need to be paying attention to. But this is starting to set up for a bag entry for us. So we'll continue to monitor that situation, and let's see here. For some reason, the script last screen keeps on blocking out some of my other stuff here. Get this out of the way. Okay, so let me pull this down. I've got make some room here on my monitors here. All right. Let's take a look at, while we're waiting for the next alert, let's take a look at the Forex Factory news and see what kind of news we may have today. Let me pull that up. There we go. And so right now we are at February 10th. We have a couple of red folders here. 8:30, we have a CPI report red folder on the US dollar. That's at 8:30. That's going to be another 45 minutes. 2 o'clock this afternoon. Fed chairman speaks, and again, this will affect the US dollar at 2 o'clock. So we have a couple of red folders. We have a couple of orange folders. So give some consideration to the U.S. dollar today. Be watch for some volatility. Got a couple orange folders here. I don't pay a whole lot of attention to the orange one. I do pay attention to the red ones. So we'll be looking at U.S. dollar pairs around 8:30 this morning. We'll have to pay attention to that. We may, and oftentimes it works to our advantage because those moves are usually called out a lot of times on these alerts. Let's take a look at the Euro CAD. Euro CAD, and it's over here. So we have lots of red, a little bit of green. We're in green zones, nothing much going on here. I'm not sure where that, we had an alert. That was about the same time that the New Zealand US dollar came out. Nothing there. It's all, we are in a downtrend. Actually, it's building new down arrows. There's, since we had this arrow, we had that one over here. And usually I put these arrows right next to the zone. So if I see that this had several new, at least had one more zone that was built prior to, or since that last one, which was back yesterday. So this was still in a downtrend. It's moving pretty sideways. There's not a lot of volatility to this thing. Had a nice little move yesterday, but right now it's right. You can see how the prices are right in the middle between this high and this low. Their prices are just going sideways right in here. So I'm not seeing much of a trade in the Euro CAD at all. Let's take a look at the Euro US. This one looks a little bit better. We're going to scroll out and see where we are in an uptrend. Take this one up. We can move that out of the way. We're going to put an up arrow so we know what direction if we come back to this chart. It is in an uptrend, and we're going to scroll out a little bit here. Now this looks like this was a bag entry. We're in an uptrend. It came down, hit the zone, came back out of the zone, gave us an arrow, and let's see if there was room to the upside on this. May not have been enough. That's only 12 pips. Okay, that would not have worked anyway because there isn't enough range to the target. If this thing goes away and comes back down and gets a bounce off of this one, then we would have another entry. But right now, this one is this one's on a hold too. And also remember, this is one of those US pairs that we may have to be paying attention to at the 8:30 mark. Let me get my vertical lines in here. And we're going to change the time on this to the 10th. And we're going to change the time of this one. I have the time set, and all I have to do is change the date. And I just copied and pasted that, the 10th in there. And that's all set. So now we know where our reversal zone is. So if for some reason it did come up here into this zone and give us a down arrow, we can take that trade if the zone is big enough. And I'm not sure this one is. We have 20 pips, so you'd have to pretty much get an up arrow. I'm not sure you're not going to get the 20 pips on this one. Even if this bounces, gives an arrow, we're not going to get the 20 pips to the next zone, so that's not going to be a trade either.
Hey, Al.
Yes.
Euro pound. Just sort of wondering, that looks a little bit like a bank induction move right now. It's a little, not quite all the way on it, but you see that?
Yeah. So we have all the red. We have a bunch of red. We have a group of red candles. We have a nice drive into here.
Oh, you know what though? It's a downtrend though.
We're in a downtrend, and it made a new new zone. So we're gonna keep moving that one down. So yeah, that one's is this, make sure we're on the 5 minute. Yep, we are.
Yeah, that could be a counter trend though when we get to 8 o'clock, right?
That's correct. We're a downtrend. Yeah, 8 o'clock we could get an up arrow into, but again, I don't know that we're gonna have enough room here. Yeah, we could. It'd be tight. The question will be whether or not this zone is going to hold. This was just newly made today, last night on this. And here's the bounce arrow go and the down move. So this one actually would have been, I don't even know if there was enough on that room for this one. Yesterday we had a problem with it. Everything was so tight and everything was going so sideways. And see, that was only 12 pips. Euro British, let me see what the Euro British looks like here for strength. The Euro and the British. I'm showing more strength to the British pounds. So that would be to the short side, but not by a lot. It's not overwhelming. I would say, again, this would be another one we just need to be patient to get the volatility back in the markets. Right now, things are just really kind of sideways right now. I think a lot of it has to do with there's so much politics going on right now that it's really affecting the markets. And I think everybody's a little bit scared to make any major moves. So everything is just kind of in a really tight zone. But usually when things are real tight for a long period of time, they break and they break hard. Then it's just a question if you can get in on it at the right time when that happens. Here's our overnight session. There's our overnight. That's basically where the money zone, beginning of the money zone. And you can see that right now, the whole range from yesterday's, for the new day open till the high and low of the day, you can see that there's hardly any movement at all into this thing. I don't think it's moving probably, I don't think there's a 10 pip range in here. From here to the top here. Yeah, barely 8 pips from all night long. This thing only moved sideways 8 pips. Broke out a little bit up here, broke down a little bit, but it just I think it's a good one to stay away from. Let's take a look and see what gold's doing today. And let me see what we got here. Just checking out the if anybody has any questions or comments, put them in the question and answer box. That way we have Eva and Charles and Christine will be there looking at the monitoring it for me. So I oftentimes forget to look when I get looking at the charts here. Let me see if something else here, see if there's any other alerts that we might have possibly. Give me a second here. There we go. I'm trying to get the, see if there's something else. This used to be an Iris trading room, and we get the Iris alerts. I'm just seeing what we had here for the Iris 715. There was a British USD. Let's take a look at that one. And actually that 715, there was a wedge on this. Let's see, this would be at 7:15. That was basically 45 minutes ago. You can see we have a little bit of pretty much a flat top. We have a little bit higher lows right in through this area. We have a little trend developing. And the British US. British is relatively strong. British and the pound and the dollar are the two strongest currencies pretty much across the board. So we'd want to be trading these to the upside, but the pound and the dollar are basically fighting for first place. So I don't like having that kind of a spread. I think nothing really to take on this one, even if we did want to do something here. The upside is only 14 pip range. I like to see more than that. I like 20 pips. 20 pips is a comfortable range to be able to take to try and get some profit out of it. You don't always get the 20 pip target, but if you have a 20 pip range, you can usually get 15 or so out of it if you get the right move on it. Hope today's not going to be another one of those slow trade days. We did have we did take that one trade last night. British New Zealand, that one worked out very nicely. That was one that Jackie called out in the other room yesterday. And it was on a 1 hour chart.
Which one was that now?
It was a British New Zealand.
Oh, British New Zealand.
Yeah, that was, we'll see how that one, I'll show you how that one developed. British New Zealand. Here we go, over, here it is. This was the one, we took it right over, pretty much in this area. It was on a 1 hour chart. It took it off of a 1 hour chart, H1. We had the arrow, and we took a little bit of heat on it, but the target was up here, and you see it made the target last night. That was a nice little move.
Nice move, yeah.
Yeah. And as she said, but the thing is, remember, if you're doing a 1 hour chart, you have to remember you have to give it more wiggle room. You have to give it the rule is usually a 100 pip stop, 50 pip target, as opposed to a 40 pip stop, 20 pip target for the 15-minute chart. But they said the higher the time frame, the more wiggle room you have to give it. But then also the more pips you're pretty much able to get with that.
So that reached target overnight, is that right?
It reached target overnight. It made the target. Let's see, what time was that this morning? It made the target right at let's see, about 5 o'clock this morning is when that made the target.
Wow. And what time did you guys place that? Was that in the morning?
This was it was somewhere around 10 o'clock-ish, I think.
Okay. So you just need
I
to
think it was off of this this arrow here. So it was right around right around 10 o'clock. Right where this blue line was. So it's probably right on this candle. Here's my entry. The blue line is the entry. The green line is my 20 pip target. This is a 40 pip stop. I decided to let this one go overnight. I got out right about here on my one trade. So I didn't run it all the way to the top, although obviously it made a nice little move there. But that was a nice little trade. Right now I don't have any trades on.
But in the Q&A, the NZD Swiss M15 is forming a W, but a support zone needs to be created for it to qualify as a bag.
Okay,
NZD
before you
Swiss.
jump. Sorry, I didn't mean to.
Oh, talking about
That was a bank induction. So
NZD Swiss. NZD Swiss. Here, take a look at that one. We're on a 15-minute chart. Nothing there.
Well,
Here overnight we had a nice little bounce arrow go. That's a nice little trade here for the overnight. But this was I made the mention last night. I was saying that a lot of times the early sessions in the evening after the market reopens again, oftentimes they don't really work out very well. This was at 2 o'clock. This was basically around 2 o'clock. 2 o'clock in the morning. 2 o'clock in the morning. That would have been about 7 o'clock last night is when this one happened. This was a nice little move. It had the bounce. We had the arrow. We had the go. Way before the money zone. This is all in the around the Sydney Tokyo session, which would be the New Zealand pair. You can see that that one hit the zone down here was 37 pips away. It hasn't hit that yet, but you did get your 20. You would have gotten your 20 pips out of it.
The trend's up though.
Is the trend up?
Yeah.
Oh, that would have made a difference. Yep, sure is.
Yeah,
This
so
was
I think that's what he's talking about, is it looks like it's starting to form a W, and it could possibly turn into a bag entry.
Yep, let's take a look at this. Spread this one. Let's get the arrows in here. Arrows up. That's what I like about these rooms is sometimes it brings things to my attention that we can all talk about and look at and see if there's something developing that we need to maybe be able to start analyzing before we actually get the arrow. Maybe I'll move these vertical lines over. All I do is I just hit this to bring all my vertical lines up, and I just go and click on the individual line, change the date on it. So these are just all my lines that are set for the reversals. Paste that, put 10 minutes in, the 10th in. The same thing with this one. I find it difficult sometimes to try and grab these lines and then try and move them to where you want. That's why it's just easier just put it right in the parameters box. So we have that. So here's a nice strong move down. Here's the first leg of the W. Here's the middle of the W coming back. And it looks like it is trying to form. And actually, you're seeing you actually formed a little bit of a wedge. I wouldn't be surprised to see this thing come all the way down into the green zone before it turns around. But we could get a nice little move to the upside with the trend after 8 o'clock, which is going to be in about another 2 minutes. We're going to be there. And this is New Zealand Swiss. And again, New Zealand is really weak against about everything. So you want to be trading it to the weakness of the Swiss, of the New Zealand. So that means if the New Zealand is weak, that means the Swiss is strong. If the Swiss is strong, that means we're looking to a downtrend. So looking at this thing moving to the downside, but eventually that's going to turn around. And I would not be surprised to see it come into the zone and bounce up and then give us another chance to the upside. Now the question would be is if it comes into this zone, do we have 20 pips to here? And that's 43 pips. So there's plenty of room to the upside if we get a bounce off of this green zone.
Excuse me, Al, we have a question.
Yeah.
They wanted to know, Judson wanted to know, is there a time frame limit on Arrow? For example, daily, weekly?
I know that there is a primarily the main time frame for the currencies is a 15-minute time frame. There are people that are doing swing trading on the 1 hour and the 4 hour chart. So you'll see that a lot of times in some of these rooms and discussions. You'll see that they had a 1 hour alert on the and so that was what that British New Zealand trade last night. That was a 1 hour alert, and we just got a couple others here: U.S. Swiss and British Swiss. So let's take a look at that. So you have 15-minute, 1 hour, and 4 hour. The main time frames. 15 minutes more day trading. The 1 hour and the 4 hour is more in line with the swing trading. We're pretty much using the 15-minute, although some people have charts. So the thing is, you don't get the alert. You get the alert on the time frame which you have it set for. So like right now, I've got a 15-minute alert on the U.S. Swiss because that's what my chart's set up for. So let's take a look at that. But if you have these set to whatever time frame you have these currency pairs set for, that's what you're going to get the alert generated off of. So U.S. Swiss, that's this one right here. And let's we certainly in a downtrend, at least on this time frame. Let me zoom in a little bit or zoom out. Definitely a downtrend, lots of red, a little bit of green, up arrow. So right now this is contra trend, but we are in the contra trend zone. However, it looks like we're right into the red zone here. So this would not be a tradable trade. Let's take a look at the British Swiss. And we did say the British is strong. So this one, if we had something to the upside, that might be a possibility. British Swiss, Fibonacci, we are in a, let me take this Fibonacci line off. Click on the Fibonacci, just delete that, get that out of the way. We'll get our zones in here for the time zones. Put this on to the 10th. There's our 10 o'clock or 8 o'clock time. Oh, that's the wrong one. Got the wrong one there. It should be a 0-2. Try that one. See if that works better. There we go. So let's analyze this one. We're going to zoom out. We are in an uptrend. We'll get our up arrow, see where we are with that. There's a little zone right there. There's the last zone that we had. Zoom in. We had a bounce. We had an arrow. This was an arrow go. We have two arrows at the same time. We can go to a 5-minute chart and see what we have looking for that. Right into a zone there. And I don't think we'd have 20 pips to the next zone. Even though that one, that's only 10 pips away. Go back to our 15-minute chart and see. Let me just spread this out a little bit. This was, this was the first arrow off the bounce, which would have been right at this point. There still wouldn't have been enough room for the upside. If you had taken this one, this arrow to the upside, that's still only 15 pips to there, so it's still not a trade. And I have to say, there's just not enough room to the zone to take it. Could, I mean, if you wanted to take it, you could, but with reference to this bounce right here with this other arrow. But you know that right now we know we have a zone sitting right in front of us between. Here's the 15-minute target zone. Go back to the 5-minute. And you see it's going to have to get through all this area right here before it gets up. And the British pound is stronger, but it's not that strong compared to the Swiss and the pound are pretty close together. So I would not take that trade based on this zone right here on the 5-minute, based on the fact we had this. I mean, this was the second arrow. This would have been where the entry would be on the. Let's see, this is the British Swiss at 1.2334. Let me mark that. This would be 1.2334. This would be the entry. And the target would be 20 pips. 1.2354. Which is all the way up here. That would be your target based on this. You can see it's actually already starting to pull back a little bit. And the stop would be 40 pips below at 12294, we'll call it. And stop is all the way back down here. So there's a lot of room for the stop. There's a lot more. It's not a lot of. It's really a pretty close range all in all. From what you look at this size of this move here, it's still relatively tight. But you would have to get rid of this zone first before you could do that. I say it was on the 15-minute chart. We basically had a bounce arrow go, but he didn't have the room, came back down, pulled back, formed a bit of a wedge. You can see here's a bottom, here's a bottom. So you have kind of have like a double bottom with a little bit of a wedge coming in to the top. So here's a pivot high, sloping on down. You can see where it's, if you draw your trend lines from here to this area right here, if we get a break, you'd have to get a break above this upper trend line. But this, I would look at this as being somewhat of a trap between here and here. Basically, pretty much at the top of the money zone. You can see where the shaded area. That's pretty much where the overnight high was. Here's the overnight low. And right now it's trading somewhere. The question is going to be, is it going to break to the downside to retest this area? I'd be more apt to think that would be the possibility. The zone overall between, if we got another bounce, another retest of this area down here to the upside, that would be a good trade. So we can get another bounce and another, this could be a possibility for a bank induction on this one, if we understand this correctly. But I would want to see it pull back, maybe retest. Here's a pivot low, here's a pivot low. Here's a pivot that left this green zone, this pivot left this green zone, came back in, formed another one. Here's the next pivot. We'll draw a trend line between those two pivot lows off these green zones from here to here. And I'd be looking at, it'd have to break through this. Here's a nice little pivot down. And we actually have a more gentle slope trend line. And we have another trend line from here to this pivot low. We'll draw that. And somewhere in between, you'll probably be seeing somewhat of a, now if it comes down and bounces off of this trend line, here's your wedge. Right now it's trading in between this area right in here. If it can break to the upside, I would expect that you might get a little head fake up here, come back down, possibly head fake you into this area, but this would be the area I'd like to see it take off to get to the upside. By that time, the British pound and the Swiss franc may have a little bit more clarity as to who's going to be dominant. But right now, I would stay out of this trade. I see too many head fakes where it breaks this trend line, comes back up. If it does break in here, you might just get a little whip. This would definitely be an area where I'd be looking at selling, just like over in this left area. So that's no trade there. And for those reasons. Let's take a look at the EuroCAD. That's another one that's on the list here that they had an alert. Well, we already looked at that one. That one's going absolutely nowhere right now. Sideways, no range, down move, inside, nothing there. And let's see what else we had overnight. That's about it. Any other questions? Should we always have enough room on the 5-minute and then the 15 to enter a trade? I'd say each time frame should be able to stand on its own. Now, if you have two arrows together, two up arrows together, one of the techniques and strategies is to move to the lower time frame, the next lower time frame. So if you see two arrows on a 15-minute chart, let me see if I can find a good example for that. A lot of times, especially in the evening moves, two arrows outside of the money zone. Let's just see if we can find. Now this one was this one could have almost qualified. Let's say you have had a bounce off of here with a down arrow, and you had the second arrow before the money zone. When you get that second arrow, then if you're on the 15-minute chart, that would be qualified to change to the what they call a multi-time frame strategy, where if the second arrow, after the second arrow, you could go to the 5-minute chart, and then you do the same thing like you would normally do with the bag entries. You wait for a zone, a bounce, and then take it off the 5-minute for the continuation. That's pretty much. But most of the time, I look at the For me, most the trades usually have to qualify on its own time frame. So in other words, if I'm looking on a 15-minute time frame, I want the bag entry to be qualified on the 15-minute. I may look at a 5-minute just to see if there's maybe I look at it just to see if it's pulling back, if there's a zone that was sitting right up where it's causing it to pull back against where the entry was, and possibly be able to get a better entry as opposed to changing timeframes to qualify the trade. It should qualify on the time frame which you're looking at. Now on the U.S. dollar, the indexes, you're starting with a 5-minute time frame because they're more volatile. That's probably the bigger reason for that. But most of the time, I just qualified on the 15-minute, and I may look. It's called that peekaboo strategy, where you're actually looking to see, can I get a better entry? Because most of the time, if you watch when these candles close on like a 15-minute candle closes, especially if it has a little bit of a wick, oftentimes you'll see that next candle open a little bit to the downside, and then it turns around and then comes back up. So usually the low in an up move, generally when the candle closes, the low of the next candle will come in first. And then after that comes in first, then it comes up, makes a new high, especially if it starts trending. And that's just the way it generally seems to work.
Excuse
Hopefully
me.
that answers your question.
Excuse
British
me, Al.
Aussie, yes.
2 questions for you. One is, should we always have enough room on the M5 and the M15 to enter the trade?
Yes.
Or just okay.
You should always you want to have 20 pips. You don't want to be taking trades with, I mean, you can if you choose to. The thing is, if you have a 20 pip, if you have room for 20 pips, again, doesn't mean you have to wait and just take 20 pips. You may be able to settle for 17 or 15, but you want to make sure you have enough room to get your spread taken care of. You have your you wanted the spread plus the slippage. You'll lose anywhere from 2 to 4 pips oftentimes from spreads and slippage in and out of a trade. Well, if you're giving up 25% of that move already, you don't want to be giving up only have like a 10 pip range, giving up half of it with a 40 pip stop. It just doesn't make sense. So I mean, having a double the stop versus the target is plenty liberally enough, but it also keeps you out of harm's way. They came up with that 40 pip stop for a reason, that oftentimes it will go back against you 20, 30 pips. It still keeps it from getting stopped out, only for it to turn, because the brokers they search for stops. You put a trade in and they're looking to see where the stops are, and they'll just drive the price to where the stops are, take everybody's stops, and then move in the right direction. Well, if you give yourself enough wiggle room to your target, oftentimes you can keep from that stop searching pullback that keeps you in the trades, so you can make that target. And that's why you can usually get a relatively high win rate, but you have to do it with probably a bigger stop than probably a lot of people would normally take. But that's one of the strategies that helps us win these strategies, is to use that data that was collected to find out what stop is not over the top excessive, but yet enough wiggle room to be able to get you to reach that target. So as I said, usually, unless I have a 20 pips, the lowest I would go on my normal trading without the arrow, or with like a wedge alert type of situation, the least I would usually go is 15 pips. But then I'm usually looking at a 7 pip stop. And that's real precise entry. That's a whole different technique than what we're talking about here. Hopefully that answers your question.
And can you please, someone would like to look at the silver, pound silver Aussie,
The which one?
the British pound silver,
The British
Aussie.
pound silver?
British pound and the Aussie.
Okay.
I was taught to call the British pound silver.
I was
I'm
hearing
sorry.
silver in there. I thought British pound silver. I said, what is
I'm
that
sorry.
one?
I'll just delete it, seeing we do silver on these charts.
Okay, yeah, I don't have silver on here. So the British pound pound Aussie is what we're looking at.
Yes.
What we want to see. Okay.
Yes.
That makes a little more sense to me here. Okay, so pound Aussie, 15-minute chart. And right now we're in the middle of the zone. No, we did have a bounce arrow. We have a double arrow here. So let's take a look at this one here. Here's where the last arrow was. And that was at 76.91. So we go 20, 91, 01, 12. So 12 would be 91 to 12. So 70, 79.12 would be a target. It looks like it's probably already there. This one already made the 20 pip target. This one will be to the downside. Let's see where our trend is. And we are looks like we are in an uptrend. 2 zones on the top, 3 zones on the bottom. We are in an uptrend. Let's zoom out. So this would be one where we could say that we're on a 15-minute chart. We had a bounce arrow. So here's the first arrow right here. And we have a second arrow over here. And that would be right at the close of this candle. So now with this, you could do with the multi-time frame. This one we're in the uptrend. So we're with the trend. And we're up. There's our last zone. Let's see where our next zone is up here. So we're going to be looking at, this is the bottom of the zone. From the last arrow to the top, we have, that's 112 pips. That's pretty, is that right? 112 pips? I think so. 80, 80 to, yep, that's 112 pips. So lots of room to the upside. This could be a really nice little trade. Okay, so let's go to the 5-minute chart. And we do have a zone sitting right in front of us here. Here's a bounce arrow. So we have this one, which would be right here. And now we have this zone right in front of us. Now the question is, what do we have on here? $16 pips to we have a pullback, 16 pips to this zone. This one may be worth taking. British is strong to the Aussie. Except on the very low time frames.
Well, Garvin had mentioned on this same pair, on the 1 hour fib, you could probably get your 50 pips out.
Yeah, this one could possibly do a Fibonacci on this one. Fibonacci retracement. We're in the uptrend. Here's the zone for the Fibonacci. We had a strong move up, pulled back, crossed over the blue line, gave us a pivot right here with an up arrow. Had a nice rally. Here's a little base rally coming back. It's retesting this area right here. And right now it's in the 60% pullback area. This thing pulled back 60% and gave us another up arrow. It's retesting this zone right now. This would be one of those that I may be more apt to do a a buy stop. That way, if it keeps pulling back, keeps on going, you don't take it in here. I do like this little pivot right in this. So this is on the 5-minute chart. We do have a little bit of a trend, a wedge developing right here. From this to have a little bit of a trend break. This could be if this price comes back up inside the wedge and crosses over, and this might be a good area to possibly take it long. I like it to the upside more than I do the downside. Here's a wedge right here. We're looking at it as the wedge break, but we have all this green down below. I like to see it come back down, get rejected, come back up, and then maybe look at maybe the break of this area. Because oftentimes what happens is we have this pivot right here, we have this pivot right here, and if it breaks this still has to get through this little pivot line here. So to the downside, this little orange line. Now this is the 62% retracement of this move. If you do take it long, if you do take it off the bounce of this, your stop would be down below here. I know these lines are getting kind of busy here, but and I see we have an Aussie yen alert here. Let's keep an eye on this one. We'll keep an eye on this one, British AUD. Let's get back to this one. We'll keep an eye on this one here. Let's go to the Aussie yen. And it looks like we're in an up move. See this one. This looks like this was a while ago, 17. That was a while ago here. I don't know, we have the room to the upside on this.
That was 40 minutes ago, Al.
Yeah, that was 40 minutes ago. I would have to stay away from this one right now, but you only have 15 pips to the upside. Here's a British Aussie, was the last one I'm seeing here. Did we take a look at that one? Or is that what we were looking at?
Actually,
that's what we were looking at. That's what we were looking at.
On your alert little box there, scroll up on the right so you can see the most recent ones. Yeah, there you go.
Yeah, British Aussie was one. British Swiss was right about the same time. British. Let's check this one out. Let me take British Swiss. This was a downtrend. Downtrend. This is a contra trend in the contra trend zone. I had the break. Let me take some of these lines off of here. And a nice little break to the downside. Now, this would be a contra trend move. Here's the alert. And do we have 20 pips to the green, even in a contra trend? 12 pips, no room there. Although this thing could come down, retest this, and then come back up after the retracement. We did get the break of this wedge right now. This is the one where we're looking at, where we had this lower trend line. We had the break, and you can see right now it's kind of retesting this area. A little bit of a doji right there. Price is right up at the top where the blue line is. British Swiss, British Swiss. Swiss is stronger than the British on the lower time frames. Again, this is one of those that it looks like there is a direction here. The question is, do you want to take the trade with less than 20 pips? My answer to that is no. Everybody has their own little criteria, but the strategy says 20 pips. So we can get a entry at, say, 23.14, say 23.34. We could move this thing up to 23.34. Which would be all the way up here. If this thing could come on up, it'd be almost like another retest of this zone. And we really didn't get the bounce off of this zone either. We have the arrow, but we really didn't get the bounce off of it. It bounced off of here, came back up, retested it, couldn't break it. Now we have this trend line right here that we're dealing with. Again, this is one of those, you could take the trade, but you can be sitting in it for quite a while, wondering which way it's going to go. I like staying away from those. And part of the thing about trading is just having the patience to wait for the right, it's like hunting. You have to wait for the right moment to pounce. And right now it's just not quite, they're just not quite there. We have so many of these little tight zones all over the chart, all over the charts and all the pairs. We have these tight green zones and tight red zones, and it just keeps on meandering in between and just doesn't give you enough room to take it. The only thing you could really do is go to a higher time frame. And that would give you a little bit more range to get rid of some of the smaller zones, but you have to be more patient, be willing to take these things on for a longer period of time. Nice little move down there. Nice strong move down, bounced, came back out. I'm looking for a retest on this area. From a 1 hour chart, you actually have room to the downside, I believe. But you really, it's not part of this, it's not part of the strategy because you didn't really get you just barely get, you could barely get the 20 pips, but this would be a contra trend to retest this zone. And would have to get through these little wicks right here. Price came down, bounced, came back up, bounced, came back up, made a high. Each time it came down here, it bounced and made a higher high. Came down, bounced, made a higher high. That's why I think there's probably a good chance it's going to bounce again, or this would be the third hit. Then we'll go lower and then make it a higher high. So you could get a little whipsaw right here. I would still be more apt to wait till it comes down to this green zone and gives us an up arrow. This is a strong move down, came back. This is almost like a Fibonacci retracement here. Let's see what if that fits. We had the bounce. We'll call the bounce right here, from down there to up here, here to here. It pulled back to the 78. That's a little bit strong pullback. But then the target would be right here, and the next target would be all the way down to this one if it had enough strength to go to the downside. But we had this strong move over here to the left, it came strong up, which created this red zone. And now it's just fairly gradually working its way back down. Here's the bottom of a wedge. Here's the test of it. Here's the anchor. Here's a hit. Here's a hit. And so right now it's trading inside this zone right in here. It'll probably come up, retest, and then break down, or come down, retest, and go back up again. But right now it's just inside. And if you look in the where this between the two blue lines where the price is right now, let's see what the range is here, there to there. You basically have 23. The most range you have on this is just less than 20. Is right at 23 pips, 25 pips. It's basically just consolidate. You got a high, a low, a lower high, a higher low, lower high, higher low, and eventually it's going to come out to the end here, and then it's going to break one way. And more than likely, what's going to happen is it'll break to the one side, get everybody into the trade, and then reverse back and then take it down, or it's going to break it down, get everybody into the trade to the downside, and then take it back up to retest. Right now, you're looking to see they're just, again, you're back into this same scenario of, now we're on a 1 hour chart with that. If we bring it back to a 5-minute chart, kind of spreads it out a little bit. But I would see, if I could see right now we have a down arrow, we had the bounce, we have arrow, but from this arrow down to here, what is that? Let's see what that is. $13 pips to the green zone. You see how it came down and it tested? Well, that's probably where I put the. See if I have my trend line here. When you change time frames, you can adjust the tweaking of these zones to get a little bit more precise. You see how it came down, faked you out, went right back up again. It came right down. Here's a little wick, came back down. And all it's doing is making lower highs and higher lows. If you were to try and trade in that, you'd have to be considered more of a scalping type of technique. And you're only going for a few pips. Euro Swiss, let's see what that one did. Any other questions or comments? Well, we have a little time
yes,
here.
Mark has that the pound US and the pound Aussie just went crazy.
Pound US and pound Aussie.
Yeah,
pound
US.
US.
Aussie, you had an alert at 8:20.
Yeah, we had
an 8. We had
pound US. Let's go that. Remember, we had a news announcement at 8:30 on the US. And so on the, make sure we're on the 15-minute chart, came right up to the zone, rejected it. No arrow.
You're on the 15 now. I mean, you're on the, yeah, okay.
I'm on the 15.
You're on the 5. The alert came in on the 5.
Oh, alert came in on 5. Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Thank you for pointing that out. Pound US. The US was strong across the board. Now it's weak across the board. So looking at the pound being stronger, this thing could be I don't see an arrow though. We're in our contra trend zone here. Moves over to the 15-minute. 2015. There's 1500 hours right there. This is our contra trend zone. Let's see what this thing is on the. Let's go back to the 15 minutes, see what the overall trend is on this. And we had so we had a green zone. Yesterday was the green zone was right here. Looks like it's building some new green zones over here. Here's the rejection. Move up. So pound stronger to the dollar by a lot, actually. And there's our first red zone on the 15 minutes, right at that. If it can break through the top of this zone, let's go pound US. Let me put a different chart up here. British pound USD. There's our trading view chart, 15-minute chart. And we know we have a red zone sitting right up at the top here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to see where here's where the peak of this last move up. We don't know where the next stop in the line is going to be. So I'm going to do is I'm going to put a line across, and I'm going to look back to the left. I'm going to go to a higher time frame to see if I can find it. Nothing there. Nothing there on the daily chart. Let me go back to the 4-hour here. So we're all the way back to December. Let's see, 38.55. Nothing. Now to go all the way to a weekly. See a weekly. There we go. We finally found something at 38.55. Right about there. That's where that blue line is. And you see, this is on a weekly chart. Holy cow! This is. You see, this is strong. Boy, that's a strong move down for that week. This is all the way back at almost April of 18. That's almost 3 years ago. So if it's going to go higher, it's going to be looking at this area right up here for a target. Get back to our 4-hour chart and see what this looks like here. If it can break through this area, it has pretty much clear sailing up until, from a weekly standpoint, there was a weekly chart that went all the way down up to the top here. So this thing could break all the way up to the April 18th levels. Back to our 15-minute chart, see where we're at here. So we know that if it breaks through this 38.50 area, it could go a lot higher. Let me see what the price of that area is. It's right around the $1.40 area. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put this on my chart. And we're going to make a zone. Insert. Go to the shape. And we go with a rectangle. And about 139, about $1.40 area. And the top of that would be 140.32. And we're going to make it 140.0. That's the zone right there. So if it's going to break through this little red zone, I'd say you could take it long. And this could be the possible target, which is a long way away. Be 140 pips, 142 pips to the upside. It probably would not be a clear shot, but it would be something to be looking at. Any questions on what I did there? Gold took off.
And also there's a lot of questions about the US CAD. Several people mentioned that one.
US, let's take a look at gold. There's an alert on gold here. Let's take a look at that real quick. Yeah, gold's going back up. And we didn't have the bounce, so we don't have a bag entry, but we do have an up arrow. You should be looking for a $5 target, so it's 1850, so 1855. It's pretty much already at the target area. This was the entry. Now this should be on a 5-minute chart. Yeah, I think should be on a 5-minute. That was a 15-minute. There is room to the upside for the gold. You don't want to chase it. Now, the question is from that to where the blue line is, that's the trend line. It's at 50 to 62. This does have room to the upside. To take it now, you'd be chasing it a little bit, but it does look like there's room to the upside. I'd maybe like to see a little bit of a pullback on the next candle. US Tech, I'm going to stay away from that one. We don't. I'm not trading the indexes right now. They're at an all-time high. They keep going higher, but they're also very extended. So I'm just going to not take those. We can take a look at it. This gold trade, boy, I'd like to take it, but I don't like the fact that where it is right now to take it. It's not a bag entry. It didn't bounce off of this zone. But it is a breakout. This is sort of a wedge breakout right here. Let's take a look at gold on the other chart. Let's see where our target with gold would be. And we're over here. This is the target area right here. This is where we are right now. Looks like 1859 could be a possible target in this zone right in here. That's a strong, strong move up. I would wait for a little bit of retracement off of this. Here's the breakout, the zone breakout. Here's the anchor. Here's the hit. Here's the third hit. And this is the breakout. Took out this zone right here. It's right now it's into this. This was the origin. Up here is the origin of this down move. You see where all these wicks are right here. I'd expect to see a bounce off of this area, maybe even a little bit before. Here came down, came up, retested it. Nothing over here. It has a little drop. Here's a little red candle, blue candle area, which is right where we are right now. I'd like to see a little bit of a pullback before I jumped in on this one. I think that was definitely a move for the, that was one of those, this is right at 8:30, I'll bet, too. Look at the 15-minute candle. This is basically this was right due to the announcement that whatever that announcement was, this is what drove that. That's what spiked that up. There again, you want to try and stay away from those red folder area news announcements. But now that the news is out, you can maybe play this as a little bit of a retracement, wait for it pulls back, and then maybe give it another shot. If you can get enough $5 move back, you maybe will get another retest of this zone. But that's why that gold move, that was with that news announcement that we had at 8:30. Now, if you're in the right direction to catch that, you would be in great shape. But to be able to catch it after the news is already out and it's already out of the chute here. But now you can possibly play this to we know we're looking at the upside of about the 1862 area. This is our trend line. If we could get this thing to come back and retest where it broke out here at the 18, where we got the arrow down here. This is on the 5-minute. I'd want to see it come back right around in this area for a retest. And if you do that, if you can come from, well, you have to go from this point to the high, let's see a retracement. This could be a nice little Fibonacci retracement on this. If it could retrace back to where this blue line is, that would give you a 38% retracement. That could give you a nice little bounce to come back up and retest this point here. And there would be enough room, I believe, on that. That's at 55 to 45 to 55. That'd be a $10 move. So if it pulls back even $5, you can maybe use that for another target to the upside. We have lots of green bars. So it is in an uptrend right now, what I'm seeing. Again, we're doing the gold on the 5-minute charts. But I'd wait for the pullback on that. Any questions on that? Counter trend. Yeah, it is in the counter trend. I went.
The counter trend, she's referring to the pound yen. I was just asking for more detail on a question.
Oh, okay. Yeah, that could be confusing. Let me move these counter trend markers in.
The counter trend was on the pound yen that she was asking about.
Okay.
Just
Let me put these in and we'll take a look at it.
Before the call-ins here, looks like Kiwi USD is making a move here now. Might get an arrow on that one soon.
Kiwi USD, I reckon that's going to be part of the move that we had with the announcement, I think.
Yeah, we had a bounce. We had a nice bounce here, just whether or not it continues the trend here.
Kiwi USD. Aussie.
Go
New
over
Zealand,
2 columns
New
out.
Zealand. Where's New Zealand USD? There it is. Here's our W. Like to see some green.
Yeah. And it's a little tight again. Yeah.
That's a little tight. That's 22. That's 22 pips right there. What I'm going to do is I'm going to move it. Let's see where this price is.
It's a nice looking W, right?
Yeah, it is a nice looking W. Let's go with the target. Oh, let's see, 72.45-ish. And the open trade would be 0.72, go 25. Be right about there. And then the stop would be somewhere around 0.7200-ish.
That's nice.
Somewhere around there.
Yeah. Wait for an arrow though.
Yep. Or wait for an arrow or wait for something green. But this would be a potential entry at 72.23 to 43. And actually we could go anywhere from 46 to 26. So anywhere around in here, we could be looking at that. New Zealand USD, where's the strength on that? New Zealand is still weak, but getting stronger. You're gaining strength to the New Zealand on the 30-minute chart.
What hey Al, what website do you use for the strength meters?
I just use this right here. This is our indicator that we have.
On TraderView.
Well, yes, it's on TradingView, and basically what it does, it has all 8 pairs on 4 different time frames. I can change the time frames as I wish.
Is that like I have a TradeView account too? Is that something? Is that something you created, or is that just something they have?
It's something that a friend of mine and I created.
Okay.
And talk to me, and I'll see what we can do about making it available for you.
Okay.
I'm working with the developer. We were talking with Auvoria Prime a while back about having this make available to them. That's when we were using primarily TradingView charts with the iris alerts.
Right.
So there is a point in progress about making that available, and I think that's still on the table. We just have to revisit the issue again. Let me ask a question. How many people in the room are using TradingView charts? Just raise your hand, or I'm going to get a little bit of an idea what kind of interest there would be on this.
I was prior to Arrow, but
don't
right now, because I wasn't nearly as advanced as you with TradeView, so I've just gone to MT4. Yeah. And if they actually have Arrow available for TradeView, I'm sure I'll take a look at that.
Yeah, we are working at making it available. I just want to see if there's an I could kind of stop the process because everything was pretty much gone to MT4. And we don't have it, so there's quite a few people here. All right, we're gonna revisit this issue, but this is the strength meter that I use for the different time frames. Because I can change it from different time frames. I've used it on a 1 hour, a 30-minute, a 15-minute, and a 5-minute. The 1 minute is almost a little bit too fast. The 1 hour makes for a nice little, but when you see like the Swiss I can look at all four, and if I see, like right now, you can see that the U.S. is weak on the 5, the 15, the 30, and it's coming near the week. So right now, I would not want to be trading in favor to the strength of the U.S. dollar. I would be looking at I'd be looking like a U.S. Swiss pair, where I'd be trading to the strength of the Swiss, or I'd be looking at a Aussie pair trading to the strength of the Aussie. And so that way you can just look at this and see, okay, which one's stronger, what time frame, and that can give you a little bit of a clue on a 15-minute chart whether or not I want to be taking a Aussie US pair, if I want to be taking a long or short, based on what I'm looking at with the strength. And sometimes if you see where you get a bounce and it's going to the strength of the Aussie and the Aussie strong here, I'd be more apt to take that trade. When they're real grouped up, real close together, I get a little bit more hesitant because there's no real clear definition about who's going to win that race.
Yeah, it's, just watching the New Zealand go down a little bit as you were sitting here showing us this. I'm watching the chart for New Zealand USD, and that's going down, correlating pretty well with what your numbers are showing there.
Yeah, so like right now on the New Zealand USD, it's we have an up arrow with and it's bouncing off. So I'd be looking at the strength of the New Zealand to the dollar. And so if I look at this on a 15-minute chart, which would be like right here, here's the New Zealand, here's the dollar. Well, it's nothing real conclusive on this, nor is it conclusive on this, because they're both really neck and neck. Here I'm looking at New Zealand still weak. Here is still relatively weak. So there's no real strength. So to trade it to the strength of the New Zealand dollar at this point, I'd be a little bit hesitant. Now, if I can get those to switch over where it starts showing where on the lower time frame where the New Zealand is starting to gain strength against the dollar, and you can see that here on the 5-minute and the 5 and the 15, it is starting to show some strength. That would give me some reason to say, if this goes from a 3 to a 4, I like to see it get above the 4 or 5 before, and then once I see that with the spread, I like to see at least a 3-point spread on this. 3-point spread with that, then I'd be okay. Yeah, it's starting to gain the strength. The pullback is done. We have the formation. We have everything else is lining up. Yeah, then I take the trade and go. But I'd probably still want to monitor it.
We've got 1 minute to 9 o'clock.
And we need to wrap this thing up because the next session is about to start. So
thanks, guys. I'll see you on the other call.
Yeah, we'll see you on the other call. And so everybody, again, any other last minute quick questions? You got about 30 seconds. If not, thanks again for everybody for coming in.